welcome to another great podcast. I got me and Coach D here live, and we have Coach Aboyoun, who is played. I think you guys played together at Montclair, Derek.
No, not even close. We we played against each other. He was a DePaul guy. I was a Butler guy, and then we actually.
I lost him.
We lost Coach D. Did we lose him?
I lost your audio, D.
Derek, we can't hear you.
So
we lost you there.
As I was saying, so Lou went to DePaul. I was a Butler guy, so we competed against each other there. We actually went on our Monmouth University recruiting visit together, which we'll leave for off the air stories. And then in college, Lou actually went to Marist, and we ended up playing each other there too for his 1 year of college football. That I think it was only 1 year, and then he focused on lacrosse. So, and then we don't want to mention playing semi-pro together, but because that was just an absolute disaster, craziness. We've talked about the semi-pro stuff on here before, but no, Lou and I go back a long way. I'm really happy he can jump on here and kind of add some light to the lacrosse world and whatnot. He does a lot of great things, so we're interested to hear it and look forward to hearing what he has to say about it. Louis, buddy, I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Looking forward to talking.
So, Coach, if you could go into your background and then how you end, from lacrosse playing days to how, and maybe if your football playing days to how you then, transitioned into coaching and then into starting Mad Dog Lacrosse.
Sure. So I had a little bit of an unusual path. I played sports my whole life. Like Derek and I said, I feel like we've been playing against each other in football since we were little kids, being in rival towns, rival high schools, same age, same position. So, growing up in sports, I ended up transferring from Wayne Hills to DePaul my sophomore year of high school. And, I was always a football player, basketball player, baseball player. And when I got to DePaul, they had a lacrosse club. And I happened to, be riding my bike by the field one night. I was going to, I guess, get some work in or whatever, lights on the field. And when I got there was a bunch of guys out in the field playing lacrosse. So I kind of stood around and watched. And the next day I went in the office and asked about the lacrosse club. And I was kind of told that there was a waiting list. They only had X amount of equipment for the kids.
Yeah.
That are already there. I really was interested in it. So, lucky for me, I have awesome parents, and, they pretty much went out and bought 3 extra sets of equipment, one for me and one for the 2 other kids that had already asked ahead of me, so that we could all be part of the lacrosse club. So that was my intro to lacrosse. It was the first time I ever picked up a stick, didn't know any of the rules, just kind of was interested in the pace of the game. And I thought, lent to my personality a little more than baseball did. I'm a little bit more of a impact type of guy. So we went from club to varsity the next year. I got a little bit better, but, obviously lacrosse not being my prominent sport, I didn't really get recruited too much for lacrosse. I kind of missed the window, but by my senior year, I was first team All-State.
Yep.
And it was a pretty awesome accomplishment for being at a new program in a small school. And, I was going to play football in college. So that's kind of what my plan was. And got to Marist, played a little bit as a freshman on the football team. After the season, I decided I was going to walk on. So I walked onto the lacrosse team. I made the team. I started as a freshman as a defensive midfielder. We won our conference. We went to the NCAA tournament. We played Johns Hopkins in 2005, which is considered one of the best teams, one of the best teams of all time in college lacrosse. Guys like Paul Rabel, Kyle Harrison,
studs.
Guys who we played against, they whooped up on us pretty good. it was an awesome experience. And I kind of decided like I was playing such a big role on the lacrosse team that I should, maybe focus on that. And also my academics. So transitioned full-time to lacrosse, and, the rest is kind of history. But, for me, my summer job, even when I was younger, like in high school and I was always coaching the camps, you know what I mean? Like I would be a player and a senior in high school, like come coach the DePaul football camp, or like I was taking what I learned at these camps that I was attending and then like, helping these younger kids. So for some reason, I always just coached. I mean, for me, I thought it was the best summer job you could have. If I had to get a job, I was like, I'm going to go coach camp, or I'm going to go work at camp or whatever. So, as we went forward, and I'm playing college lacrosse, I met a guy named Billy Dewar, who's my roommate. He's from, Manasquan, one of the best players ever come out of CBA high school. So, him and I, after my freshman year, he was 2 years older, he was like, it was either get a job on the boardwalk down the shore, or we're going to try to run a lacrosse clinic. And, Billy and I kind of ran this lacrosse clinic, and we got a couple kids and, enough to put some money in our pocket. And then we did it again. We got some more kids. And then really what exploded the program was, the next year, his younger brother, Tommy, played at Johns Hopkins, won a national championship, graduated, and kind of like took over the program. And, we had 100 boys at camp, 100 girls at camp, and then somebody kind of came to us and like, why don't you guys put a club team together? And it just kind of like snowballed from there. Tommy moved out to San Diego after a few years later. We kept New Jersey going. Now he's out in San Diego. We're one of the premier programs in Southern California. And honestly, over the past 5 or 6 years, it's really exploded. We're in 3 regions in New Jersey, 3 regions in Texas, 3 regions in California. We're about to open in Illinois in the suburbs of Chicago. We have affiliate programs in Colorado and Washington State. So like we're a national program now, and we're pulling the top kids in the country into our program. So it's pretty crazy. We're grassroots. I would say we're still, it's as big as we are. We're a family-owned business, like Tommy. Right. It's very tight-knit. There's no board of directors. There's no outside investors. Everything's pretty grassroots. So it's a really good place to be. And I've been lucky to be doing this for 18 years, whether it's full-time now, but a long time.
That's really cool. That's really, really cool. That's a great story. I mean, it's unbelievable how that came together. From 2 guys deciding to like, let's go run a camp, right? It's amazing how that comes together, and you just going on like the website and how much you guys have. And I see like the dogs, lacrosse, pennies all over the place down here, obviously, because it's near Manasquan. Yep. So I see the kids all over the place who obviously play for it, but I never knew exactly what it was. You know what I mean? So I didn't know, because I'm not a lacrosse guy, So I really didn't know. I see it all over the place, and like when you go to the website, it's unbelievable what you guys have built there. What were some of the challenges, like, as you kind of, because it looks like you guys took a step-by-step process, really kind of building it. What were some of the challenges you guys went through? I'm sure when you expanded from like east to west, and then adding Chicago, which are obviously all hubs for lacrosse, and now, right? But what were some of the challenges you guys went through in building everything?
Listen, obviously finding great people that want to join you on this. I mean, when we first started it, nobody knew who we were. And I remember wearing my Mad Dog stuff around and people asking me what it is and about it. And now it's, funny. It's like 10 years later, like, 20 years later. And like, like we have this brand recognition almost now. But, just when you're starting anything, it's just, fear of change. People have like, there's already things that exist and like, have success, and people are afraid to maybe like trust your process or, kind of stick with you. And I think a lot of what happened to us early on was, we hadn't gotten to the point in our program and our players' ages where we were like going through the recruiting process with players, and like we hadn't gotten a class to that point. They were all young kids. So like
Right.
for a while, some of our competitors who had been more established and had proven track records and success, like, the sell against us, and I guess the sell for them to get the best players was, hey, they haven't really put anybody into college. Like if you want to play college lacrosse, you kind of need to be here. We're going to support you through this. So, there's a time period where we get like a team to a certain point, and then like some of our best guys would get picked off, or like, and it's all part of it. But we were finally able to get over the hump with our, like, the kids who are seniors in college now, believe it or not, they're about to graduate, our 2021 class. We like didn't have enough kids for a team in New Jersey. We had like 10, 11 really, really good players. And then the same thing out in California with like a couple sprinkled Texas kids in there at the time. And that's kind of how like our national team model came up. And like that team ended up being ranked like number 2 overall in the country by the end of their career. I mean, we played against Dante Trader, who just got drafted by the Dolphins. We played against Will Shipley, who's on the Eagles. Like there were some serious athletes like that we played against at a high level. And we were, like I said, the 2nd ranked team in the class by the end of their career. So the majority of that team went to big time Division I schools, are doing really well in college. A lot of them are playing in the NCAA tournament right now. But that kind of got us over the hump. Like once we were able to be like, hey, like, look if you stay here, look what we can do. And we have credibility now. Like, you can no longer say that about our program, that we can't put kids into college, or we don't have the ability to do that. So once we kind of broke through that barrier, like it really took off. And to date, I mean, I think since 2020, like we had like 1 or 2 kids that we put into college in 2020, but like from 2020 to 2024, we put over 250 kids into college to play.
That's phenomenal.
Lacrosse, from D3 to D1,
all levels.
So, but like over 250 kids, 79 or 80 kids just in the 25 class last year. So I mean,
it's huge.
Massive, like it's been increasing every year, and like the talent keeps getting better, and our pool of players keeps getting bigger. So like, now our players are contributing at a high level in college. So like the coaches want more Mad Dog guys, or like,
right.
They have something to base it off of. So, but like I said, it's a very pretty cutthroat industry. Like, it's really no rules. I mean, it's like all club youth sports. Like everybody wants the best players, and there's some rivalries and like bad blood out there. But to be honest with you, I try to just not pay attention to any of that, and do as long as I'm doing the best I can do and taking care of the families that are here, and kind of like following my moral compass. You know what I mean? Like it tends to work out in your favor, So if you're doing things for the right reason, it shows. If you're doing things for the wrong reason, eventually it's going to show. So that's kind of how we built the program. Like that's our culture here. I think we have really good culture at our program too.
It's really interesting how lacrosse has slowly but surely continued to grow all the way across America. Like one hot spot at a time, I remember when at the University of Denver, all of a sudden became very good because they got the Princeton coach to come out there, and that kind of started to really continue to jumpstart the West Coast, and obviously what you guys are doing. And then Chicago with Northwestern, especially the women, right, have become really good. So it's really that suburban area around there is like a boom in lacrosse. And Texas obviously probably has a huge boom, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
In
so many players down there.
Yeah, there's so many players, athletes down there. So talk about that, because I remember for a long time, and probably when you were, getting out of college and stuff, everyone kept saying, Lacrosse is is fastest growing sport. Everyone's like, well, is it going to get there? Is it going to get there? Right? It was still dominated by certain areas, but over the course of the last 15 years, basically since you've been in it, is really the time that it's really started to take all those steps and again talk about what you've seen, in the time from when you came out of college to now.
Yeah, I mean it's blown up. From not having it in my town, like for me not to even know what the sport is until I was a sophomore in high school,
Right.
is crazy. You know what I mean? Now that I see the scope of the lacrosse world now for the kids, the youth kids, like I mean, there are kids in kindergarten like playing in like second grade. You know what I mean? Like they're so far ahead of the majority of other people from 15 years ago. But yeah, it's really taken off, and it continues to grow. I mean, the Midwest is you know what I mean? Like it was always like Baltimore, upstate New York.
Yeah,
like
DMV area was
New
always
Jersey,
huge with it.
So like, but now, the California kids, they can play all year round, so it's there's so much at these kids' disposals, like, and it's almost like a double-edged sword, right? Like if you're a young kid, like we encourage kids, like, you should be playing multiple sports, like play football in the fall, play lacrosse in the spring and the summer. You know what I mean? Like, because, you don't want kids to get burnt out either, but it's like literally you can do as much as you financially can handle, and like physically can handle, and logistically can handle. Like if you want to play lacrosse all year round, every day, you can do that. You know what I mean? It's pretty wild, where I don't think it was necessarily like that, when I was coming up. You know what I mean? Like if I was in Wayne, I would have had to go play in Boonton. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there was a team with a team close by.
Well, I think, Lou, too, like you see now, like you literally see feeder programs being created, or even like youth clinics that happen, you know what I mean? In even like the smallest of towns where, I hate to say it, but like in comparison to people want to, make the like baseball no longer being like what it was. And I think the evolution of lacrosse, like good, bad, or indifferent, has taken away from that because, even for example, like you and I, like we couldn't stare out of the baseball field and like pray for somebody to hit it to us. Like that just wasn't our jam, right? Like we just needed something extra, or that more like, the steady pace of a game, or any of those types of things. And now these kids can now open their eyes to that and see that. And like you said, as long as you can, kind of handle it financially, which look, if you can work that out and figure it out if you really want to do it. Like even the kids at such a young age are being exposed to something that normally they wouldn't have, or 10, 15 years ago wasn't even a thought process in their entire realm. So I think that's really awesome about it. Plus you see some of the highest academic schools, whether it be high schools or colleges, like this is their thing. You know what I mean? Like, you want to talk about Del Barton, CBA, like some of these schools that are high level academic now go to Ivy League. Like you see those teams in the lacrosse Final Four every year, right? John Hopkins, like it adds to
the best. Yeah, like right now in college lacrosse, like the arguably the best teams are in the Ivy League, the ACC, or the Big East. So like
talking Duke, right? Like Duke,
I mean?
like these teams are big time.
Yeah. So not only do you have to be a really good player because they go get whoever they want, but you also have to be a stellar student. You know what I mean? Because it's no joke. Like they can't just get people into Princeton. You know what I mean? Like they may have some wiggle room, like if you're the best player in the country, but like
about this much wiggle room.
You still need to be a 3.840 student. You know what I mean? Like to be able to get into those schools. But
100%.
Coach, what's cool, is the pro lacrosse league is they're not. It's not the NFL. It's not the NBA.
Never gonna be
like 800-pound gorillas in the room. MLB, right? NHL.
PLL, you're talking about, right?
Yeah, the PLL. So like but it's like, for the young player just to have something to watch the draft, to see college guys get drafted and like have a pro league, and like, there's something to do after you play in college. Now, granted, I don't know how realistic it is for them to just do that all year round, like, and just live off of that salary. Like, that allows them to supplement with other things. Like, they can charge more if they go to a camp, or they can run their own thing and they have this pro credibility. So, like, I think there's a way to generate income and just be like a pro lacrosse player. Like, are they going to be able to buy a Maybach or something? You know what I mean? No, I don't think so. But like, it's there's still, but like, they're growing it, and they're, like what Paul Ray
was on ESPN. The draft was on ESPN.
Yeah. It's
and like you said, like Lou, like you want to talk about, like, like Paul Rabel, right? Like, basically, I don't know, the LeBron of, lacrosse, like what he's done to generate revenue, whether it be camps or, just whatever. I think now, with access to all that through social media and those different ways, avenues of getting income or making yourself more in the limelight.
He's the outlier.
100%. But also, Lou, like, I look at it like this too. At the end of the day, like, you want to talk about supplementing a pro lacrosse career, like you said, these guys are Ivy League guys or high level academic. Like, most of them could have a job making, whatever money wise as well, so you double down on it.
I had some friends that, like, in the old league, I mean, they were getting like $500 a game to play in the pro lacrosse league, and they were playing in front of 300 fans, where they were just playing in front of 3,000 in college. And like, they're working Monday through Friday in a finance job, and then like catching a flight out on Friday after work, going to play on a weekend, one game in whatever Rochester, wherever city you're going to, and then flying back with ice on your knees, like, to come back to work on Monday. Like, it was almost like, it was a failing model a little bit, because like, they didn't allow these guys to be the best they could be. And now, like, with the PLL, that's what they're trying to do. So it's cool to see that. I think that's growing the game. And obviously, like, the parity in college lacrosse, there's a lot of stuff going on that's going to make college lacrosse more competitive over the next couple of years. And like, see some, like, you could already see it, like the teams who were the perennial powerhouses back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, like, some are still there. And then there's some new names, like you said, like Denver, and like, like Richmond, Towson, you know what I mean? Like, Towson was really good back in the day, but like, they're back in the tournament now. And like, Virginia isn't, you know what I mean? They're a perennial powerhouse. They aren't, in, you know what I mean? Like, so there's parity, like, it's kind of like Notre Dame was the 2-time defending champ. They were like 8-6 this year. You know what I mean? They made it to the tournament, but like, they've been shown that they're beatable. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a wild scene. It makes it fun to watch lacrosse in May for sure. And like, it does, like, get everybody amped up for the summer, which is when we kind of get going big time for us. So
is there any NIL involved in lacrosse for the really like top tier players, like with Hopkins? Because I heard Hopkins, like, my brother coached track at Hopkins, and like Hopkins is like Johns Hopkins in lacrosse is like Rutgers is in football as far as financially. They have endless financial resources for lacrosse, right? I don't know if every other place is like that, but is that becoming a thing with the top players? Or
I spoke with somebody that I know that like does NIL stuff for like a living, like their company handles that. Obviously, again, like, you have people that are getting NIL money, like Shedeur Sanders and Livy Dunn, and like, you have this end of the spectrum, which is like millions of dollars, Archie Manning, and you know what I mean?
Right.
Obviously the lacrosse, like, garner a lot of money in lacrosse is tough, but like Joey Spallina, who's on Syracuse, he's one of the best players, in college lacrosse, or at least one of the most popular, you know what I mean? And like, I would imagine he has some NIL deals going on. It's there, but it's like it's not like guys are entering the transfer portal like they are in college football and getting $3 million to go play quarterback at Miami. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little different. Maybe like, we'll give you a free, we'll give you free pairs of shorts, or like, you know what I mean? Like you'll get some equipment, or like, you know, maybe you get $100 a week. Like, you know, I don't know. Like it's still pretty new for me. I don't really get into it too much.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, it exists. It's just on a smaller scale than, you know.
I also think that just like like that model in general, again, I think, and especially if you want to like, you know, say, hey, at a younger age and then track through, I think you could eventually generate something. But I also think like people in general are going to compare everything to college football because it's a monster moneymaker, or men's basketball, monster moneymaker, right? Like we even talked about like how women's basketball is still not on the scale of what it is, but you could have a Clark where, you know, like she herself separates and whatnot. I think it's going to take like the next Paul Rabel or somebody like that, like a couple guys to hit it.
Somebody who's really good on TikTok and
100%, dude.
I mean,
that's where I was going with it.
Like that is
a female lacrosse player, right? Yeah, good too, right? Because
but even so, like we see it too, right? Where we see these social media guys that generate their own offers, right? That just because they're good in the way they do it.
Enough to know what I was doing to make some money off of like TikTok and everything,
dude.
Like,
we could have partnered
and I have like missed the boat, but
we could have created this like you and I could have created like this rivalry between each other, and we would have generated so many like millions of dollars just based on a fight between two rivals.
I think it's a slippery slope though, like too
100%.
You know, so I try to, you know, I err on the side of like less is more.
Right.
Stay behind the scenes, just work hard, get it done.
I'm sure you'll see Bryn Warrior, you know, start to pick players eventually that they.
Yeah, I mean, I think
did in the past. The old Warrior did.
You guys have sponsorship deals. Like guys have sponsorship deals.
Yeah.
Just like I said, smaller scale than, you know, like
we're not talking Nike shit here.
Think of that, so
explain recruiting on lacrosse, because obviously football and lacrosse are different in how recruiting works, and obviously, you know, your club coach, you coach high school, like there's a relationship there in lacrosse. Football does not have the same relationship as it does with club sports and as lacrosse does. But explain that and explain how, like, you know, recruiting works from a lacrosse standpoint.
So from, you know, I can only speak from my perspective and like my experience and, you know, what I've taken from all this. But, you know, for me, like the college coaches recruit you based off of your club team and seeing you play in the summer. Obviously, if you're at a really good high school like St. Anthony's or Del Barton or Seton Hall Prep or Lawrenceville, or, you know, like, yeah, like you're playing some of the top teams in the country and like you're probably a top player and that will help you. But there are a lot of kids that play on schools like Montville and, you know what I mean, like local suburban, you know, Wall and like, you know what I mean? Like, so, you know, those kids, like college coaches may not be able to come to New Jersey to see a high school game because they're in season. So they're really seeing these kids during the summer. So
interesting.
The way recruiting works, summer, fall, winter, you know what I mean? But like really outside of the high school lacrosse season, you know, other than watching tape. So the way the lacrosse landscape works, and honestly, it's like something has changed every year since I've been doing this, like to add a wrinkle or add a hurdle or, you know, change the way coaches are doing things. So, you know, you always got to kind of adapt to what's happening in the landscape. But, you know, college coaches, Division I college coaches cannot contact and like recruit a player openly until September 1st of their junior year. So for instance, this year, like so like this year, like the kids who are sophomores now, the 2027 graduating class, they'll play this whole summer. Their sidelines will be packed with top Division I ACC. Like everybody be watching the best kids this summer. You play in June and July, and then like you don't, and then like the coaches can't reach out to you until September
for another
1st.
month.
So you kind of know where you're at. We'll have a bunch of conversations. Like, you know, guys will reach out to, hey, we really like this kid. Like, you know, what do you think? Do we have a chance at him? You know what I mean? Like, so we'll kind of get a lay of the land. But like September 1st at midnight, it's like, you know, I stay up till midnight. Some of the kids do, some of the kids don't. Like, we kind of tell the kids, like, it's okay if you go to sleep and answer all the texts the next day or answer your emails the next day. But like, you know, if you're a top player, you're getting text messages, phone calls at midnight. You know what I mean? Like, a coach may show up to your house on September 1st in the morning. If like, you know, the top recruit in the one class, like the head coach for Virginia, like showed up at his house, you know what I mean? He obviously committed to Virginia, but, you know, it's like, that's like the
Extreme,
upper,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, the majority of kids may not hear anything, you know what I mean? And like, the top schools are going to go get who they want, and they're going to start the process, and they're going to, you know, kids are going to visit schools and start to make their commitments and decisions in September and October. And then you start playing again. And then you play in the fall. And like, it's now the curtain's up, and like, you're playing in front of a coach, and he can walk up to you in the parking lot afterwards and like, you know, introduce himself, or he can send you a text message like right after the game. And like, you know, the line of communication just opens up a little bit. But, you know, we help our players significantly through the process, like whether it's speaking with parents and managing expectations and like preparing them for what the timeline is, what they should be doing, how they should be communicating with coaches. Like, when the curtain does come up, we have, you know, okay, send us the screenshot of like what the coach said to you. Like, let us see what he's saying. Like, you know, okay, you know, here's how you should respond. Like, you know what I mean? Make sure you respond to everybody. Like, we have group chats with all our guys. Like, we're pretty like hands-on, and we try to help get all of our kids where they want to be. You know, obviously you know, our biggest thing is trust the process. Like, everybody's on a different timeline. Don't look at your teammate who you may think you're better than, who's committing, and then like be like, why am I not committed? Well, your timeline's different. Like, you know what I mean? Like, everybody's got their own process. And eventually, like, from what I've seen, like, kids end up in the spot where they're supposed to be. And like, that's a great fit for them academically, socially, athletically, like, you know, and every kid wants to play D1, you know, in their first start the process. Like, I want to play D1. And like,
of course,
I kind of laugh because it's a very broad term. And like, every kid says that, and every kid wants to play for Maryland and Virginia and Penn State and Notre Dame, whoever won the national championship the year before. That's who everybody wants. The reality is that's not going to happen. And like, you know, it's really managing these parents and the kids, and like trying not to like dash their dreams and hopes, because you never know, but at the same time, like, trying to give them realistic guidance based on feedback that you're getting and like what you're hearing. So, you know, one of my favorite things to say is like, I feel like I deal in the most valuable commodity in the world, and it's other people's kids. You know what I mean? So like, of course,
bro.
Parents want to, you know, they want what's best for their kid. They want to look out for their kids. You know, they want to make sure that their kids are getting supported the right way. And like, you know, it's just like, you know, you're dealing with people, you know what I mean? And like emotions and egos and a lot of different things. So, you know, I feel like transparency and communication are paramount when it comes to that. So like, as long as people are feeling hurt and you're trying to help, like, and you make yourself available to them to speak on the phone for half an hour, or answer an email within 24 hours, or respond to a text message, you know, that, I think that goes a long way. Sometimes they don't like what you have to say anyway, but like, at least you're doing the right thing, you know? So,
well, I mean, look, and we deal with it, you know, daily, like with, you know, like comes to football and whatnot, it's very comparable. Like, every parent thinks their kid, it should be this or should be that. And sometimes that's not the reality of the situation. But as long as there's that open communication, and those parents feel like their kid is getting, you know, the support or whatever they need moving forward, you know, and look, you can do all those things and still like, you know, in part of the process as a student athlete, you can do, you know, textbook how it should be to get recruited or whatever. And then it's still not, you know, doesn't work out because, you know, that's that coach's prerogative, or that's that program's whatever. So it's not a perfect science, and it's constantly changing. I had a question. I was curious to know how, when it comes to like, look, every father or parent thinks they know school football when it comes to that. What is like or have maybe like most of them have played at some point or whatnot. Do parents in lacrosse, is that the same type of thing? Have most parents played the game, or do they actually understand the game to a point of like, I can help my kid? Or do you see less of that in regards?
Um, no comment. No, I'm kidding.
No, no.
No, I'm like, listen, we have some like parents who played at a really high level that are like really like played at Princeton, played at Georgetown. You know what I mean? Like guys who know what they're doing, and like a lot of the time, those guys like sit back and don't say much. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
and then like you have some other people who played, or like I played here, I did this, and I'm and they want to kind of critique a lot of things, or don't agree with the game plan or the playing time rotation or whatever. Like you get that, and then you get people who are like, I don't know anything about this, Mike, but my son loves it. You know what I mean? Like, so
Right.
I think with this amount of people that we have, like we get a little bit of everything. So but we don't have, like I said, like every region we have is different. Like up in North Jersey, we don't really have too many like dad coaches. You know what I mean? Like like whatever, what you see in rec or whatever, like all of our coaches are either high school coaches, college players, like whatever. Down at the shore, it's a little bit different. Like we have a couple dads who coach, but they're also like, one of them's Kyle Sweeney, who's in the Lacrosse Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? So like probably want that dad coaching. You know what I mean? Like it's
Right.
a little, I think it's like
Right.
a case by case basis, but that's always tricky, is like if you're, having the dad on the team that his kid plays, like whether the kid's the best kid or not, like you're always dealing with that. Like there's always that to be plucked from the sky when somebody's unhappy, is like, well, his son's you know what I mean? He's playing his son over my kid because it's his son. But like, I think I think we do a pretty good job, like not having that happen a lot. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
there's a lot of that nepotism that occurs. But yeah, you deal with a lot with the club lacrosse world. There's always drama. There's always, you're not.
I think that's youth sports, bro. That's
youth
sports. That's any level.
It doesn't matter what sport it is. You know what I mean? Like it's all the same.
Yep.
I feel like.
I was just curious with how it's grown so fast. You know what I mean? Like, look, if I have a son someday and he wants to play lacrosse, like I'm gonna have to call you and be like, I don't know what's going on. And I've tried, to like figure it out and help, and you know what I mean, like down here by me, because it's big down, it's big in Jersey, like it's a big sport, 100%. But I mean, like, it's kind of one of those things, like, like my dad played football, so I trusted my dad to know what was going on. Like, it's just different. I was just curious to know, like, what level of knowledge base do parents in that world have? It's interesting.
Some are super knowledgeable and have a ton of credibility and experience. And like, I almost want to be like, do you want to come? Like, what do you think? How are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, like I said, those are the guys that tend to like sit in the corner and like not say anything and watch practice.
They just want to be a dad. Yep. They just want to be a dad.
Yeah. And like it's so, like I said, I don't think there's a negative about it. Like, people are the way they are, and like some are super involved and like want to be super involved, and like others kind of let their kid go through the process or like handle things on their own. And so there's people that have been in our program that I never heard a word from for years. You know what I mean? Like nothing.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, thank you, like this, that. And then like, you have people that, it's like you feel like you talk to them all the time. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's just again, customer service. You know what I mean? Like it's a customer service business. Like,
right.
You have to remember that too. So you have to.
You're dealing with people.
Yeah, well, yeah. Lacrosse is expensive to play, so
that's the other part. That's the other part.
It's not pay to play here. You know what I mean? Like you're paying a fee to be part of our program. We're providing value. We're like, this is an experience not everybody gets, but like, yeah, there's that balance between like, we're paying to be part of your program. Like, we expect certain level of, like we expect to be heard, or we expect my kid to play a certain amount or whatever. And for us, there are different like tiers to our program.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Like on the development teams, like, yes, no kids aren't sitting the bench. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's going to play and we're going to develop. And like, the goal is not to go hoist the trophy over our head, like, because the tournament, you know what I mean? Like, we're playing at lower level stuff. But as you get up the ladder in our program, like, yeah, playing time is earned and not given and not equal. And like, you're going to play the best kids on the team, who are also probably the best kids in the country. And like, it is very competitive, So like,
Oh yeah.
But those are the kids that are going to go on to play in the ACC and the Ivy League. So like, you better learn how to handle this now and either overcome it or don't, because like, when you get to college,
that's what it is.
You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's different scenarios for different levels of where you're at. And we've had kids go from here to up here and be Division I commits. You know what I mean? Like, so the kids who work really hard and are super bought in and like, don't let one negative action affect them, end up being pretty successful by the end of their careers with us and like go on to be good college players. But like, fork in the road, you can either be like, coach hates me, or like, I'm not good enough, or it's like, I'm going to show them. And that the kids who take this road usually, end up being pretty successful.
Do you have high school coaches that are not as experienced as coaches in lacrosse? Because there's probably a good amount of them as it keeps growing, right? That maybe they played some lacrosse or they're thrown in as high school, that reach out to you guys to get help with stuff. Did you ever have that? Is that
yeah, we have like, like not so much, more on the rec side, like the town rec lacrosse, like, every
like the feeder programs, like the youth kind of,
like
what I mean?
like Montville Youth Lacrosse, like, like Kinnelon Rec, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so
you just named some pretty good towns there, buddy. Like shit.
So honestly, what we've been doing all spring is we've been going like town to town and running like free clinics for the rec program. So like one Sunday, like we'll show up with our staff, and our staff, we'll run them through like a clinic as if we were running one. And, it's twofold for us. Like, one, we're getting out in the community, we're growing the game, and obviously we're getting in front of like a lot of the youth kids who we, like, cause you want to build your program from the youth up. So like, we want to get in front of these kids and just let them experience our staff and what the environment's like. So, it's marketing, it's, community outreach, it's grassroots growing the game. There's a lot of different things that benefit that, but the rec programs usually reach out. Sometimes I get emails from like the high school programs, like either asking me to coach or like, hey, we have we're looking for a head coach. Like, do you have anybody? And, a lot of my guys either already coach somewhere or, but yeah, we've had some guys get placed in high school jobs, like through our program. They're all doing a really good job. But it's tough, man. Like, high school sports are very, very time consuming. Like, you are 6 days a week. Like, if you are a good coach, like, you are practicing 6 days a week, you are watching film, you are scouting the other team, you are, you know what I mean? Like, so it's a full-time job. And as you guys probably know, like, if you're coaching a high school sport, unless you're at some crazy school that I have no idea where they exist, you're not getting paid a whole lot of money to do it. Like, you're doing it because you want to. And the money really, like, whether it's $8,000 or $10,000, like, it's de minimis because the amount of hours you're putting in, that doesn't even cover it. So like,
correct.
It becomes like, if it, like, it's like, well, do I want to commit to this? You know what I mean? Like, do I want to just maybe be like a volunteer and come sometimes, or like, so I think it's hard to find coaches at every level, rec to high school, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think there's like a big time, like, coaching shortage of like qualified good coaches. Like, you see the teacher in the schools, the football coach, or like also coach the lacrosse team. Like, that's great for him. Like, he gets an extra stipend and he's in the school, but like, if he's never played before or whatever, like, that's tough. But
Yeah. Real tough.
I think, we definitely need more qualified coaches across the board. I mean, I just think it's a big commitment,
Yeah, no, it's interesting because obviously the club, it's lacrosse is a good example of where club sports are completely outgrown where the high schools and regular rec is at. Although it is getting bigger because I sit on Middletown, like where I live, like
Yeah.
lacrosse has become huge. The rec program, they have so many kids and I can't believe it. So I mean, like, it actually dwarfs. It's starting to dwarf baseball. So, like, 'cause I was, coaching baseball with my son, and I'm like, how can you playing the same teams in fourth and fifth grade? And I realized in little league that we only have 6 teams. We only have, so what is that? 6 times 12, 72 kids.
Yeah.
Fourth and fifth grade playing little league in Middletown, right? So, whereas Middletown lacrosse probably at that age probably has 100 plus kids. So,
obviously there's the big, like there's towns and high schools that are like phenomenal, you know what I mean? And just have great culture and you know what I mean? Like, so I'm not like, I'm more talking about the average suburban small town, like that had like a Cedar Grove high school, you know what I mean? Who now has one of our coaches there as the head coach. Like I had coached there. Like that was the last time I coached high school, and now one of our coaches has taken over as head coach. So like, it's just a small town. They don't have a ton of kids in the high school. It's a predominantly like good football school. So like, you get a bunch of guys who are like, football players playing lacrosse. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's a lot of towns like that are just, they lose their best guys to the prep, to the Don Boscos and Brigham Catholics and Seton Hall Preps and Del Bartons, and then. It's not, they don't have a huge budget. They can't, you know what I mean? Like it's tough. Like DePaul, my alma mater. I mean, they didn't have a varsity team at one point. Like they were really good and then they went down to JV because they didn't have enough kids and they, and now they're back to varsity. But like, that's a place where it's like it's like it's hard to get somebody to come in there and stay and want to build a program if you don't have a ton of support behind you. You know what I mean? Or like, you're competing against Don Bosco and like, they have this beautiful facility and, like they get prime practice time. Like it's hard. It's, there's a lot of hurdles for like those type of schools.
I'm curious as far as when you're looking at kids and kids that are going to like the highest levels, what are some of like the most important skill sets that they need to have to really be successful at the highest level?
I mean, I would say like your motor, like, your motor on the field and like your like the intangibles on the field, like the little things that like you're just playing hard all the time and you're almost like playing with an edge that the other guy doesn't have. Like, that's what I feel like, the top guys have. They're just like so dynamic and, well-rounded. And honestly, like some of the best guys that are the best players are also like the best teammates. You know what I mean? Like, or they, they're picking up garbage on the sideline after the games, like little stuff like that. So like, it's funny how like some of the best players also have some of the best character. I mean, like, I think that's a nod to like how their upbringing and their parents and like them, the parents kind of like point them in the right direction. But listen, it's, in lacrosse is a weird sport. And I say that in like great players come in all different packages, all different shapes and sizes. Like, is it helpful being 6'4", 220, Yeah, I would imagine. 100%. I would imagine it is. You know what I mean? But like,
we would have only ever dreamed to be 6 foot, Luke.
And everybody wants a 6'4", 225 freak athlete, whether he can play lacrosse or not. Like you feel you can teach him at the college level, but you can't teach size and speed, right? Like, but then you have a bunch of guys who like, you can pick 3 different things to talk about them of why you don't want them. Maybe they're not big. Maybe they're only 5'8", 150. Maybe they're, is his lateral quickness going to be fast enough at this level? Like, I don't know if he's this, you know what I mean? Like, whatever pick it, I reach in my pocket, I can pull out 10 excuses, right? So, like, I hear that all the time, but then you watch the game, you watch these kids play over and over and over again, and like, they're playing on the same field as all these other kids, and they're standing out to me every time. So, like, lacrosse is a sport where it's like, if you can play and somebody will give you an opportunity, like, some of the best players in the world are not freak athletes. You know what I mean? Like, are they dynamically fast? Like, yes, but like, they're not overpowering sometimes. Like, they all have different attributes. And like, for me, it's like, being an undersized guy my whole life myself, I'm like, man,
right.
It's not always about the eye test. You know what I mean? Like, it's not always about who looks good in warmups, like in their equipment. Like, there are some really talented kids that are coming in and maybe not the ideal package, but are just flat out players. You know what I mean? And like, you attribute it to like a Wes Welker, a Julian Edelman, you know what I mean? Like, these guys that like had great careers, but like were overlooked and they have to have a chip on their shoulder. You know what I mean? So I think getting past that for a lot of the kids is, like, that's where my biggest thing is, where I can advocate for kids and be like, listen, I know maybe he's undersized, but like, this kid's a dog, like, does everything right. He's a high character kid. Like, he's going to make your locker room better. Like, can you come watch him? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So
I think that's the attraction of lacrosse, is that, you can come in all shapes and sizes and have an opportunity to be successful if you really play. I think that's why you get a lot of kids that do want to play it year round, you know what I mean? Because if they keep improving their skill set, their stick handling, their quickness, and their ability to understand space and lacrosse and all that kind of stuff, Yeah.
Like, I mean, listen, if you're 5'7" and 150 pounds, like, you better have awesome skill with both hands and not let anybody touch you. You know what I mean? And be like quick as lightning. You know what I mean? Like, that's you need to play to that strength. If you're 6'4", like, yeah, like, you're probably leaning on smaller guys. You know what I mean? So like, you can't play like a 5'7". You can't be a 5'7" guy and try to play like a 6'4" guy. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And I've seen plenty of kids, who are really, really successful that like you would look at and be like, this is the smallest kid on the field. You know what I mean?
Right.
Also the quickest, So like, it's, it all depends on, like you said, your work ethic and your development and the game that you're trying to play. Like, play to your strengths, and you can be successful no matter how big or small you are.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. Derek, you have any other questions for your bud?
I appreciate it, dude. Like I said, I've been trying to get this for a long time, dude, because I see what you're doing. And look, to be honest, like, it was a sport we never had at Butler, right? We were a small Group 1, never had it, but I just can't help but think that if we did, we would have been pretty damn good, because it's a bunch of athletes walking around. Kind of, I think we all, with that competitive edge, would have figured that out. You know what I mean?
You Butler guys all think you're the best athletes. It's the same story 20 years later.
What can I say, buddy?
I gotta show you something.
This is amazing, dude. Like, this has been going on since, this is over 20 years.
For 20 years.
Look at that.
Right? That's Derek coming after me in high school at Butler. He missed this tackle, by the way. I went back.
Probably the only miss of the day.
Remember, you probably got me on that. But it's funny.
I'll let you get your flowers. I'll give you your flowers. Although I'm pretty sure it was a TFL. But I mean, Lou, it's also pretty cool to talk about. Like, yeah, it's. I won't bring it up. It's okay, dude. Never lost to DePaul, but that's okay.
Beat you guys.
Coach Lou actually played for Coach McKenna when he was there as well, and so obviously, we have a relationship with Coach McKenna and whatnot, and just an overall good dude. So I think that's also too, but I like one of the other things too, like just bringing Lou on, like I think like a lot of our viewers, like some of these little things that we talk about, like intangibles or that type of stuff, you're talking about two guys who were as competitive as could be in rival schools and ultimately still have a friendship and a relationship like this all of these years later. And I think that's what's something that, sports can do in terms of that. You know what I mean? Like, you get around those like-minded guys and you push each other to get better and whatnot, and, just develop long-term friendships and stuff like that. And then, ultimately cheer for each other success in life as it is, so, I appreciate you taking the time, bro. Especially talking to some of our viewers. I believe you're our first lacrosse guy in 177 shows. So it took some time to get on, but, and I think people can take the model of what you guys are doing,
It's amazing what your lacrosse program's doing. It really is. It's
100%. Yeah. No, I mean, and it's coming from, look, like we see it in the 7-on-7 world of club and stuff that we build, and we have been going down here with our Boardwalk Beast program, and that, Dave started and whatnot, and you see the foundation. And as long as you stay the course and you do the right thing and you keep it, you know what I mean? In terms of it's about kids and that's where it ends and that type of stuff. I think you can grow it and you can build it as long as you do the right thing. So, and that's across all sports. It doesn't have to, it's not sports specific. Youth sports, I think need more of that. I think it's less about winning, more about people and development of like kids themselves. The physical aspect will take care of it as they get bigger, stronger, faster, and grow, and puberty and all of those things. More people need to understand that, like, we should be teaching the right things at a young age to develop good people and good student athletes moving forward. And, you guys do that. And that's what's awesome about it. So, Lou, man, I appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for taking the time. Keep doing what you're doing, dude.
Of course, boys. Anytime. Hopefully I'll talk again sometime in the future. Good luck with
Absolutely.
everything. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, no problem, Coach. Great having you.
Have a good day.
Bye, guys.
Have a great day, Coach.
Roll dogs.
See you, Lou.
Bye.
It's so interesting because I on the club side of things, sports like lacrosse, and I would say I'm trying to think of another sport that's really good, like really good at large clubs.
Like you're talking like soccer, maybe.
Soccer, I would say soccer and lacrosse are probably the two best, and then probably hockey too, right? Because there's not as many, so maybe in hockey, because it's a smaller sport, there are super mega clubs,
Right.
Like in North Jersey, there's one, and so but it's really interesting because that versus some of the where clubs is really big still, but more fragmented, which I would say is baseball, basketball, football, right?
Right.
So
yeah, your major sports, like it's look, it's no different than whatever. That's the bigs, that's always how it's going to be.
Soccer and lacrosse really have a good grasp of development.
Yes.
And staging things, you know what I'm saying? And
seeing like where it's going, like, you know what I mean? Like down the road.
And what stage you're at, right?
Right. Like a self-awareness, right? Like of, hey, we're here like right now, but we're, this is where it's gonna be. We just have to continue to do what we do moving forward, right? I mean,
basketball, baseball does not. Like, I think kids who are okay, this is just my opinion, and I'm not saying this is your opinion. This is my opinion. So
I love when you say that.
I don't want to get you in trouble.
Don't kill him.
I don't want to get you in trouble by latching you to my opinion. But my opinion is that there are parents that their kids are okay that sometimes think that their kids are as good as the like mega star, right?
100%.
And I feel like in lacrosse and soccer and probably hockey, I just don't know enough about hockey, that they still probably feel that way. I'm not saying they don't feel that way, but they kind of manage their expectations on it a little better. And that's why I think you see
they're realists. Like they understand what level my kid might get here, but I'm okay with this because he's probably going to end up here, right? And that's not killing anybody's dreams.
Right.
That's not like saying, hey, he's never going to make it. That's just saying, hey, this is the reality of what it is right now. This is where they're trending, tracking, that type of thing. You're right. I think there's more self-awareness when it comes to those sports. And I don't know if it's because
not as much money in it.
I don't know if it's the money thing. I think it comes down to more of, I feel like lacrosse, right? You compete on more of a national stage where you see a lot more competition outside of your geographical location.
Because not everybody has lacrosse.
Not everybody has lacrosse. So you kind of have to go and do those
Don't
types
play
of things in order to do it, right? Whereas every town in America has a youth football program, and all of those guys, like I rushed for 1,000 yards in the shore, and I'm great because you've never seen anything outside of the shore. Also, I think football in those ways, it's hard to, and I'm only talking football here, like it's hard to do that because, you know, there's so many other things that go into football. Like you're not going to go, like most teams aren't going to go play someone from the DMV or someone from New York or Pennsylvania. Like you only play the teams in your state for the most part. And if your state, and it could come back to this whole argument, like where you play ball, does that help you in the recruiting process or how good you move forward? Because, you know, if your state happens to suck at football, like, or is one of those lower tier teams, are you really getting where you are or seeing it? Because I just don't think you can. I think with lacrosse, because you can see more on a bigger scale, it allows you to really kind of say, hey, my kid's a Division II kid. Hey, my kid's this. Whereas everybody in football holds on to that dream because they've never seen anything better, right?
I also feel like maybe because there's a stick involved, like hockey, like there's a skill that has to, and soccer has that a little bit too with the ball. Basketball has that, but height is so important in basketball, right? So it's a little different.
Right.
Obviously,
but you still have to be able to dribble and do those types of things, right? It's not as, I mean, like anybody who's ever watched lacrosse, man, whoo, like that ball moves fast and you got to catch it and you got to go, like Lou even mentioned it without even telling it. Like you got to be able to handle it from both sides, or you got to be able to, you know, just different skill sets in terms of very specific abilities that you need to have, right? And, you know, football, you can be a hell of a person, like just kind of being bigger and stronger and knowing like your specific, like whatever, where I'm just running and jumping. Like now it's almost like lacrosse, like you're using something to help you in terms of a stick, right? That adds a different level of, I have to be that much better, or I have to be that much more skilled. I think that adds a huge piece to the whole thing. And then, you know, ultimately, like you got to be able to afford it. Like, you know, like
it's like hockey from that standpoint. There's
absolutely
equipment, and it's not like football where youth football is so established that like it keeps the cost somewhat down.
Correct.
Whereas lacrosse, you're buying your own equipment. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You're buying your own, and the stick itself, you know.
Oh God, depending on, look, you want to go high level. I mean, you're talking as much as a helmet, right, for football. Like if you really wanted to do it, like, and like you said, you're not buying. You know, Mad Dog doesn't have 70 helmets, and when you sign up for the team, included in your fee is an equipment fee where, hey, I'm dressing a kid in this much. I mean, look, I would think I wouldn't say as much as football in terms of like, hey, football now, like, you know, your regular mill type of, you know, equipment, like every kid is in at least $500 worth of equipment, right? Like, you know, give or take. Lacrosse, easily, if you're talking stick and all that other stuff, like it's not the same as, you know, you're not using the same type of shoulder pads, but, or a helmet, but if you want the best stuff, like it's the same and it's way less like on terms of like optics wise, like, you know, football players, the equipment they wear. Lacrosse, you really don't see all of what goes into it. You know what I mean? Like, might be less equipment, but it's just as expensive. Like if you want the big time stuff. I also think like a little bit of branding, right? Like you're talking the biggest athletic companies on football uniforms all the time. You know, Nike, Adidas, like Under Armour, all those types of things. Like, look, lacrosse stuff, you're talking Warrior and Brine and all these other things. Like, you know, some of these guys do jerseys. Some of like, you know, I bet you if you asked, you know, parents, they could tell you, you know, oh, my kid wears a Rydell, my kid wears a Schutt, my kid wears a whatever, a Speed Flex type of helmet. I don't know if you could do that when it came to your general population people in terms of, well, what's his lacrosse helmet? Oh, it's, you know, I don't even know who does those types
Probably
of things. You know what I mean?
Warrior, my guess.
I would think so, right? Like you would think, but like
Warrior was, so believe it or not, in like, I don't remember what year it was, but there was a 2-year time frame where we entered the lacrosse space in showcases.
Wow.
Yes. And we ran 5 of them. And we had
how was that?
We ran, I did not run them. Okay. I built basically we took the structure.
Template. Yep. Use our template.
I made the template, and then I had guys that were lacrosse guys run it. And then I had one of our guys there to make sure it went.
Right. Hey, make sure it's this.
Process wise. But it was very interesting. We actually at one point, because we were in it, maybe we did it 3 years. We might have done it 3 years. We were USA Lacrosse. We were meeting with USA Lacrosse, the president of USA Lacrosse, about possibly doing a showcase platform. But then we kind of like just NUC grew so quickly that it just wasn't worth it. But we were doing it, and we did it in New Jersey, Long Island. I think we did one in maybe Chicago or something, and it went very well. But it was interesting. It was like the whole thing was much more gameplay oriented. So gameplay,
like for football, it would be like scrimmages, or you know what I mean, like.
And
it wasn't like, hey, we're not doing like, I guess you could do one-on-ones, right? But that's kind of, I mean,
we did do one-on-ones,
right? Like, hey, you're also adding like, hey, you need a goalie type of thing into this whole thing, you know what I mean? Like, which now, you know, I think it's
you need a goalie.
That was such an interesting space, man.
And there's a skill set for the guy who is the face-off guy. That's a
of course
skill. Like those guys who are great face-off guys are huge difference makers because
everything starts with that.
Yeah, you win 10 out of 15 of those, your team's winning.
You have 10 more opportunities. Like it's like, hey, there's no kickoff or kick return for this. Like the other team doesn't automatically get the ball in lacrosse. Right. You have a great face-off guy and win every one. The other team might not possess the ball ever, for Christ's sakes. Like, that's literally what it is. Like, so it all starts, which is such a different. And now, if you even want to get into the whole, like, boys lacrosse, girls lacrosse, people think it's, oh, that's lacrosse. 2 totally different sports, dude. Like, in every facet, from equipment to gameplay.
Different. Yeah.
To, like, everything. Boys have a pocket in a stick. Girls don't. Boys wear helmets and shoulder pads. Girls wear goggles. That's it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's totally different. But it's awesome to, you know, like Lou and I go back so far, and I know he's been doing this for a really long time. He's an extremely high level competitor in terms of every possible thing you could think of, just like us, which is why we clicked so much. And have stayed friends through all these years. But to hear that story of how literally it was like, dude, we don't feel like getting jobs on the boardwalk. Let's let's just put this together. And obviously, you know, he hit the right spot with Manasquan because that's a huge lacrosse school, has always been. And I think this area, right? Like, and then to just grow it, which is phenomenal to see how, and like you said, I think it's so interesting to see how the hot pockets have expanded. And, you know, a lot of it is based around a college program buying in and getting really good at this, you know.
Right. Chicago, it's Northwestern.
100%. Right? Like, look, Colorado, Denver, right? The Northeast is just scattered with it when it comes to, obviously, like Maine, that DMV area, man. That
North Carolina,
Johns Hopkins, the Maryland, the Virginias, like that. section of the country. Holy shit, dude. Duke, right? Like all those. It's just so interesting. And like you said, like
it hasn't taken off yet. Well, it's starting in Georgia now more.
Well,
but it's been slower in the true southeast. It's been slower
because football rules down there, like no matter what. And you want to talk about like skill set and that type of stuff, like these guys don't go to Florida and they're not playing lacrosse. They're playing football, like the 7-on-7 compared to like 7-on-7 or lacrosse, right? Well, my high school team has a 7-on-7 team. They don't have a lacrosse team. Like, bam, it's just the scariest thing would be putting a freaking lacrosse stick in half of the SEC football guys' like hands. Like, holy shit! Like now oh my god! Like, you know what I mean? It's the same thing we said about, dude. Don't ever let like the South figure out pickleball because like we'll be done, dude, and be over, right? But those types of things.
Jim Brown
was, phenomenal. Syracuse, criminal, traditional powerhouse, like a freak of nature. But also,
they created the rule where you can't keep. I don't know if it's still the case, but back then they created the rule where you can't keep the ball. You have to do this because you can't keep it in your chest because Jim Brown would run down with like full speed,
run people over. They've taken and listen, kind of like football. They've taken They've taken a level of physicality out of it as well. Like you can't like drop your shoulder and run somebody over anymore. Like, you could back in the day, kind of like on par a little bit with football. Yeah. But, we know that certain parts of this country have more money than others. And when you're talking the South, when it comes to financial, like maybe some of like those areas just don't have the funds to play lacrosse, right? Like the lower income areas where we see it, like, where a lot of I don't want to say a lot, but a good amount of high level, athletes come from. Like,
I think baseball's still big too. There.
Dude, like it's Florida, easy to get a baseball and a bat and roll that shit out. You know what I'm saying? Like
huge in Florida still, right?
Huge. And track, man. Like Texas, those dudes run, Well,
Texas, that's why I think they are playing lacrosse in the suburbs.
Dude, I feel like Texas just has everything.
They're like California. They're like California.
They could break off, be a country, be fine. They'd be totally fine.
Yeah.
It's
they
just
have everything. They could play every sport.
100%, 100%. But it's like it's always been a sport that like it's just it's intriguing to me. It's interesting because like I don't know, it's just one of those things where, like you said, size matters but doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? And the lateral movement and quickness and those types of things are like
a big deal,
more so than like a straight edge speed. Shit, man, I might have missed my calling, but.
I think you would have been sick of lacrosse. You probably would have been sick of lacrosse.
Just the whole grab that thing and rip
compact.
It. Oh,
your build is compact, so they're gonna have a hard time getting away from you.
Right. Even look, and I go to majority of our lacrosse games here, and just like the whole like you're boxing a guy out to get a ground ball, or you know what I mean? And then I think like if people actually watch the sport and you see how much like hustle and all of those things like play into it, like you don't have to be the biggest, like, hey, ball on the ground, go get it. Are you willing to just like go in there and get it? You know what I mean? Like kind of like a guy that would dive on the floor for a basketball when it's loose, like those types of things. I think those are the guys that rise to the top, which is, it's so cool. But what an interesting gig. What, like, damn, like to grow that thing. Like if you think about it, it's grown pretty fast to get to a national level like it is. And him talking about, what did he say? 250 kids playing college, or, I mean, shit, dude, that's, I don't care what level it is. Like, that's huge. That's awesome.
That's a big program too. If they have that many kids going to college, it's a big program.
Well, he said he has levels to each, you know what I mean? So you're going with, age groups, then you're going levels for age groups, and then you're going regions. Like, that adds up real quick, bro.
It does. Very cool stuff. Good podcast. Very, very, very. As a business person too, I enjoy, because lacrosse is definitely structured as a business. as a business, and much like soccer, it's very well structured as a business. The way they have everything set up, and it's it's a smart business model, lacrosse, and it has like a process.
Listen, buddy. Lacrosse guys, we're talking Ivy League here, bro. They ain't dummies. Like,
no, it's a smart.
100%.
Do it. Like, obviously, none of them are good. Like, they could be wealthy, but none of them are going to be like billionaires. But they are. The model allows you, because the fee structure is higher, to have a good level of success. You could pay more coaches. Whether it's part time or full time, you could pay more guys and girls, I should say.
100%.
And
dude,
allowing yourself to
you're
do
spot
that
on.
helps grow it, because now you could say, okay, all right, if you're a teacher and a coach, listen, you can come over and you can make part-time income year round.
Absolutely.
Year round.
Because you can coach a team in the summer or whatever off season you have. Come be our club guy. You know what I mean? And okay, sure. Like, hey, in the winter, I would ask a question about like the indoor-outdoor type thing, right? Like, I'm sure it's a different type of whatever, or it's different, but it's still the same skill set type shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're still throwing a ball, catching a ball. You're still doing right. It's like I don't know. There's a lot of avenues. And he said it too. Like, you can play year-round in California outside because weather, right? We're going back to weather when it comes to the Northeast here. So
it's interesting. That was great, good, really good pod. All right, till
tomorrow.
we're back.
We're back tomorrow.
All right, cool. All right.